Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the Slava, seeing if it's worth getting in 2025. This research battleship is quite expensive. However, it does one thing in particular so good that I do think it's worth getting. If you're at all interested in nuking broadside ships, just like that incomparable. Right at the start of the game here, already taken out. He's on his way to a flank. No, sir. The Slava has something to say about that. 4 citadels on 4 hits. This ship is a bit of a one trick. That is all it does well. It sacrifices a lot of gun caliber, reload, turret traverse, armor in favor of all-out accuracy on broadside ships. The shell velocity is amazing. The pen is amazing. The damage is low if you don't get citadels, though. You really do need to get those citadels. So a bow on Yamato, we shouldn't do too much to him at these ranges. Oh, wait, just kidding. We do 15,000. Superstructures can take quite a bit of damage as well. So with this improved accuracy that we're getting here, you got to be pinpointing those superstructures if people are angled. But more realistically, the whole idea about playing a Slava is that you need to be finding enemy broadsides. That's where you're going to get the most value out of this ship. For 63,000 research points, it is one of the most expensive ships available. Hopefully, the changes do go through when it comes to research battleships. That was a recent dev blog where they're going to standardize all the tier 10s to be 62,000. So a small reduction there. Either way, it's very expensive, and it'll take you a while to get this ship. Overall, though, I think that grind is well worth it. This is one of the 2 battleships that I would highly recommend getting. Of course, Ohio is the other one. Bit different in the meta, of course. Slava very focused on long-range fire. It's incredibly accurate. The shell velocity makes it very easy in today's passive meta, by the way. Best shell velocity out of all these battleships at tier 10 means it's not too hard to lead your salvos. And with the better dispersion than all these other battleships at range, it also means you're going to land a lot of shells on target. Ohio is better at mid-range, brawling, tanking builds, that kind of thing. A little worse at longer ranges. Personally, I will say I find Slava a little bit boring to play. All right, I don't enjoy the long-range sniping role quite as much. I get a little too impatient. I over-push. But it does fit this meta incredibly well. Slava is so good at these longer ranges. Here we're going to just get overpens, but that's still 8 out of 9 hits on a bow on Yamato at 19 kilometers. The accuracy is simply ridiculous. The ship is very, very good. The downsides, though, are your reduced HP pool compared to Kremlin. It looks like a Kremlin hull, but you have reduced HP pool, you have massively reduced armor. Your bow stern are easily overmatchable. Your deck armor is only 32, so then you're going to get a lot more full pens from HE at your tier. The turret traverse is very, very slow. Your actual salvo weight is very low, 406s, but they only do 12,100 damage here, which results in quite low damage per salvo. So you'll notice anytime you're not getting citadels with the Slava, you're gonna just feel like your damage isn't at tier 10 level. If you're getting those citadels, though, much more consistently than a lot of other battleships at your tier, it does feel incredible. The ship is one of the best at dealing with broadside ships. The pen is best in class across the board, outside of extreme close ranges where Republic slightly overtakes it, but it does have standard fuse times and 68mm armor threshold, which results in overpens. That is the big issue with broadside cruisers, especially at closer ranges. You'll notice that you take a lot of overpens into those broadside cruisers, not getting the citadels you may otherwise be looking for. It's very good for those battleships, of course. Our armor surprisingly holding here. I gotta show this as well. Throughout this video, really pay attention to how I'm playing this ship when I get into closer range engagements. We're not going directly bow in. If you go directly bow in, it's very easy for enemy ships to target your overmatchable bow. We want to be baiting people into shooting our broadside armor. Even though it is worse broadside armor than Kremlin, it is still by far the best portion of our armor profile. And it can shatter, bounce a lot of incoming damage. Yeah, that 4 hits, 4 citadels. 81 shells total fired in that game, and we got 46 hits, by the way. Bit of a short match to start with. Don't worry, I've got plenty of amazing clips for you here with this Slava video. But a ridiculous hit rate in that one. If your aim is on this ship will reward you. It's hard to hit ships over islands though with Slava. Shell velocity means you're often going to hit those islands, but also you don't have a spotter plane. You're very limited in your consumables here, just basic heals and standard damage controls. You don't get the fast acting ones from the Kremlin line, so just very standard damage controls. And you only get 3 heals base, so here taking the commander skill to get me 4 heals to start with. Very important to have that, because you can make some plays with Slava. Part of the reason I want to make this video here too is to show you that you can play at closer ranges. Slava is a ship that is well known. It's infamous for its ability to deal insane damage at longer ranges, especially to broadsides. But this ship is still amazing at close range. As long as you can keep this sort of angling here, baiting that broadside shot, not hitting your bow, you can tank a lot of damage still. And your guns are incredible at close range. Slava has a bit of a reputation for having worse close range accuracy than it does at longer range. And that is just incorrect. Its dispersion is better at close range. It just does not lose as much accuracy as the range increases. That's the whole idea behind the Slava dispersion curve. Relative to other battleships, yeah, it's not as good accuracy at closer range compared to what it gets at longer range, but it's still very, very good accuracy at close range. At all ranges, actually, this ship has the best vertical dispersion out of all battleships. So you're going to notice it's very flat, very consistent. Here, 10 kilometers, 11 kilometers. It's so easy to pinpoint the Citadel when you're not getting trolled on bracketing enemy ships, all right? Where the dispersion is a little bit worse, of course, at those closer ranges is, 10 kilometers. You get more standard battleship horizontal dispersion. So that's where you see it fan out a little bit more in these closer range salvos. Long range into the carrier, it'll still troll you from time to time. I could show you a bunch of dev strikes from long range, of course, but I do have to include this where the carrier is just untouchable. Maybe that's just hard-coded into the game. Wargaming wants the carrier to survive no matter what, perhaps. But unfortunate that we're not able to get those citadels into them. As the ranges increase, though, yeah, that's where the dispersion gets absolutely crazy. We go from around Montana level horizontal dispersion at 10 kilometers to the best horizontal dispersion at 18 kilometers plus. No other battleship is anywhere close to this thing when it comes to long-range dispersion. So think of it a little bit flatter, where the standard battleships drop off a lot as you go to longer ranges. Their dispersion gets a lot worse. This one doesn't get worse as quickly. Still gets a little bit worse at those longer ranges. The curve is a little bit flatter, but it does still get a little worse at range. 406s mean we do overmatch through Salem bow still. This is a ship that, well, not the best overmatch. You still get 406 overmatch. So that's 27 millimeters is the key armor threshold. And with this accuracy, this poor Salem is going to have a very rough time. The bow citadels are what I'm aiming for here. If I go up into his superstructure, we're probably just going to get those overpens. So really trying to pinpoint the bow. He's reversing away from us, so that's where I aim up a little bit higher. And because Slava accuracy is so good, yeah, we get another one. Although only one hit, one citadel. And now I'm getting into a brawl with a Pommern. A very bad idea, and we're going to lose a ton of HP here. But I want to include this to just show you that it's possible to survive some of these situations, if only just. Slava can still push. I see a lot of Slavas in-game played very far back. Full salvo there from the Pommern. He does like 8,000 damage to us when I'm angled like this. Much reduced damage when I'm showing enough broadside. Our upper belt, quite tanky. Our citadel belt, also quite tanky. It's around 50 millimeters worse citadel protection than a Kremlin. Kremlin notoriously difficult to citadel, and Slava is a bit as well. I don't know if you've tried to shoot a Slava when it's broadside, but you can get citadels on it. But it's got the angled citadel. It's a very sloped citadel armor plate, much like Libertad has that as well. Kremlin, Slava, very angled. It's not a flat plate on the side there for the citadel, which gives it a lot more effective armor thickness and means it's very trolly to try and citadel it. Brawling a Pommern really is not a good idea, of course. I use my damage control there on 2 fires, and my build is a little bit greedy, all right? I also wanted to include this because I don't necessarily recommend a full Furious heavy AP build because it's going to be hard to use if you get into situations like this. We don't have a damage control. Our heal is a long ways away. There's one fire. There's a second fire. It's far too greedy. Broadside Palmer in here. We're going to get our salvo here with our front guns available. Fortunately, I do have a lot of teammates backing me up. When we're not getting citadels, we're not actually getting a lot of damage in. So these German battleships with their turtleback, yeah, it's it's not actually that high damage output. You need to be getting those citadels. We nearly burnt out there on that triple permanent fire. That's the downside of running the heavy AP Furious build. But I still like it because this ship is so good at dealing with enemy targets at those longer ranges. Assuming I don't fully push into a brawling battleship like that, the weakness is somewhat manageable. It's still a downside, though, of course, of Slava. Pushing up on the flank here in this battle, you really do want to be finding broadsides, all right? If you're not very proficient at reading the minimap, predicting where enemy ships are going to go, or reacting to where they already are, general pushing trends, kiting trends, you're going to have a tough time with Slava. This ship is all about finding that broadside and exploiting that broadside. If you're in a situation where you often just stay in your own spawn area, you turn away, maybe you reverse towards the enemy a little bit, there will be times where broadsides just appear for you, all right? But you're not going to get the most value out of Slava. You're going to find that your damage is quite low. You're going to find that you're not getting very good damage games. You're not having a lot of battle impact for your team with a Slava. This is a ship that needs to find those broadsides, and sometimes that does involve pushing up. In this match here, pushing so quickly off the start of this game, I think we caught this Mogami a little bit off guard. I know if I was playing a Mogami, I would not be expecting a Slava to be approaching the middle line of the map this quickly. And because of that, our close range dispersion is still very good, right? We get that nice dev strike. He was angled there, by the way, too. When he was broadside, we got the overpens. When he angles a little bit, not enough to bounce on his broadside belt armor there, the Citadel belt armor, we do get the full pens into him. Otherwise, I think if he went flat broadside, we probably still would have overpenned. Rear turret, also getting that Citadel. Closer range, still does pretty good. Obviously, long range into this NC, it's very good. I don't think I need to show you too many clips of us doing amazing work at longer ranges, but I really wanted to focus in on this ship's ability to play at mid and even some closer ranges, because I don't see Slava's playing there. And I think to get the most out of it, you're going to want to look for those opportunities. You can catch people off guard. Broadside Vermont here, 11.7 kilometers. Not super close range, but again, the flat dispersion. Your vertical dispersion is so good. Very consistently able to pinpoint the citadels at these ranges. It's a lot easier, even though it's easy to hit targets at longer range, it's still just a lot easier to hit people when they're this close, when they go broadside to you. And I haven't mentioned it too much yet, but I think the really good concealment of Slava also enables it to play a lot closer than I usually see this ship. 13.2 detect with this kind of firepower is very, very good. Being able to surprise people, reposition, find those broadsides without being detected is really, really powerful. People forget where a Slava is, where a battleship is. That's why taking concealment, full concealment on battleships is very, very important. You can surprise a lot of cruisers. You can surprise people with your positioning if you have good detection. And Slava being 13.2 detect is above average, I would say. It's not the best in class, but it's still very, very solid detection. This ship also having a long reload contributes to that too. For 406s, for 9 406s with such poor alpha damage, a 33.5 second reload feels really, really bad. And yet that downtime can also give you opportunities to go dark and reposition, find the new broadside target to go after. This ship is not about DPM. This ship is all about finding those broadside shots. As we've done in this video here, you're not always going to be presented with them every game. Not every match was like this, where it's just broadside after broadside after broadside. There's a lot of work involved in finding them, but Slava has the tools to make use of those broadsides almost no matter the range. I haven't talked about it too much yet, but reload mod versus range mod is a serious topic when dealing with Slava. It's not just defaulted to reload mod. The extra range gives you a lot of opportunities in these matches to find enemies that are going broadside that don't think you have the opportunity to hit them. Also, range has been shown by scraping some of the data in the game a very long time ago to give you slightly better dispersion. It's so minor though that it wasn't noticeable enough until people were looking through the data of the game. All right, that's how little it helps. Okay, so definitely not a huge difference, but technically it does help you out a little bit. And as we know, Slava is all about those singular salvos, not the outright DPM. Now in this game, at the very end here, I do want to show off that you can get a lot of potential damage in this ship. This game has not gone well for our team, unfortunately. We were pinned down by that submarine for a ridiculously long time. Now though, getting up a little closer into the action, we're not going to survive for too much longer, but we're already on 2.3 million potential damage, or near enough. Sicilia salvo comes through and doesn't actually do too much damage to us. We catch the Yamato's broadside, closer range, still able to get those massive hits in. We are obviously going to go down here. Yamato salvo comes in, does like 7,000 damage. If we're directly bow into him, he would do a lot more with his overmatch. But angling just enough that they hit our belt armor, that's where we can survive a little bit longer. We're over 3 million potential damage now. Yes, I'm using the crazy Kuznetsov commander helping us stay alive here as well. Not quite able to finish off that Sicilia, but look at our potential damage going up. This game is definitely ending in a loss for us, obviously, but Slava is tankier than you think. This is a ship that I would rate as below average tankiness for a tier 10 battleship, but it sure is a lot tankier than something like a Bourgogne or a Republic, although Bourgogne can speed juke a bit, but Republic certainly. This ship can tank a lot more than you think. Although it does take quite a lot of experimentation to figure out the limits of how aggressive you can play in Slava. To get the most out of it, I do think you need to be playing it at medium ranges, certainly getting into those closer range scenarios. It could still do perfectly well played as a pure sniper, all right? This is a very, very strong, probably the best sniping battleship in the entire game. It is just that good. But if you want to get a little more out of it, I would encourage you to push up a little bit more and experiment here. The armor, again, is very bad. 25 bow. Basically every battleship you're going to face overmatches through this. But you have 150 mil upper belt and 370, 350 here. You see that angle down, that's sloping. For some reason, that makes it just a little bit tankier than you would expect on that broadside. 32 mil deck armor here. You do take a lot of HE pens through that. If there's Yamatos, that kind of thing with 32 mil overmatch, you'll take a lot of damage through that as well. But if you can get people to shoot in here, you saw our firing angles were actually very good. You get 30 degrees forward and backwards, so you're well angled when firing all of your guns. And if you stay in a position like that, you'll often bait people into shooting here. You also have not full icebreaker, I guess, but enough when you're angling properly like this to cover your citadel, so you're not getting overmatched citadel through here. We just took a look at Siegfried, was the last video I made, and that was a big issue for that ship, where the entire bow was 27 millimeters, and it was very easy to overmatch through at those closer ranges into the citadel. It would be here as well for Slava if it didn't have this plating here. And then at the stern, you also get some of that. So don't angle directly bow in or stern towards the enemy, because you will take a lot of overmatch damage. You'll take a lot more damage. You need to show them your best armor profile, which is right around here. Now, not mentioned yet has been the AA. Slava does have, on paper, some of the best AA out of all the battleships. You don't get a defensive fire, but the actual shell explosions, continuous damage is very good. You get 6.6 kilometer AA firing range, so it starts up a lot sooner than basically anything else in the game these days. It still isn't enough. Slava is a ship that really struggles when it's left on its own, all right? That's probably its biggest weakness, is your turret traverse obviously doesn't give you a lot of room to maneuver and deal with surprises, right? 45 seconds here, very, very sluggish turret traverse. This ship, with its armor profile and generally sluggish turning circle radius too, 16.3 rudder shift is nice, but over a kilometer turning circle radius is very, very bad. You need to be playing around with your teammates. You don't want to be fully clumped up, because then everybody's just going to angle to your clump of ships. But you still do need to be playing with some teammates, because dealing with surprise targets on your flank is really not great with Slava. You need really good situational awareness, ability to read the map to find those broadsides, but also to stay alive. Now, the build I was running, I already mentioned a little bit about it. Very, very greedy. We're taking super heavy AP, furious, and no fire prevention. Typically, you're playing in situations where you're not brawling a Pommern who's going to get you on a ton of fires permanently. Typically, you should be deciding to not enter that engagement. A massive mistake on my part. But I wanted to show you. That is the downside of this build. If you're concerned, definitely drop heavy AP and Furious, get yourself a more standard fire prevention, and you could take basics, or even try to take improved repair party. You definitely can get over 2 million potential damage in a ship like this one. Or just drop Furious in favor of fire prevention, keep heavy AP, that does buff your alpha damage up to 13,000 damage. 12,100 is pretty low. 13,000 gets to be a little more respectable, and Slava can manage this, I think. Certainly if you take fire prevention, then you're not eating those 2 or 3 fires almost guaranteed a lot of the time. I am taking this skill here for AA, but more importantly, consumable cooldown. It does mean I need to be much more aware of my surroundings because we don't get the turret traverse upgrade. Probably, if you're just starting out with Slava, I would recommend you take Grease the Gears here. I would recommend not taking Furious, take fire prevention. Brisk is fine and all, but 31 knots is still good, and I think a bigger pain point of the ship is your turret traverse. We want those guns to be finding broadsides. That's the whole point of the ship. And if you're newer, you don't have the best situational awareness with battleships yet, take Grease the Gears. And I'm taking preventative maintenance here to try and keep the AA alive. I dislike being focused down by carriers. Happens a lot for me, so trying to keep that alive as much as I possibly can. But you could take Emergency Repair Expert, or even Gun Feeder. I don't like shooting HE out of this ship, but it does have a 40% fire chance. The accuracy is insane. 5,800 alpha damage, 68 mil pin. It's surprisingly okay, but that's not why I'm playing Slava. That's why I almost exclusively shoot AP. It's maybe a personal problem of mine, or something I do poorly in this game is I kind of just refuse to use HE on battleships. It just feels bad to me. It's probably incorrect if we're trying to maximize the ships we're playing, but it pretty much goes against everything I want out of a battleship, okay? So, but that is more of a personal issue of mine. Definitely give the HE a go if you're finding yourself against a ton of angled ships. Although consider that more an issue of positioning and not an issue of which ammo type you should be using. And I, again, nearly forgot those upgrades. I apologize. When I'm in a rush, I do tend to forget this. I usually am taking the same things, although on this case, I am taking auxiliary armaments here. I don't find the main guns get taken out all that often, and again, I need that AA to stay alive. The carrier focus, man, it's too much. It is too much. Damage control, of course. Aiming systems, of course. Not going damage control here, though. Propulsion mod. That's something about the Kremlin hull, Slava hull. The amount of power that the engine has is kind of ridiculous. And while it doesn't necessarily show up on the stat sheet, you can do a lot of speed juking with this hull, all right? With propulsion mod, this ship actually becomes very difficult to hit when it's just going forwards and backwards slowly. I don't know if that's a function of the ship being extremely good at that, or if our aiming system is just that broken these days. But propulsion mod allows me to play that angled position I talked about already, and tank a lot more than I should, I think. Obviously, we're going concealment, and then I'm taking range here or reload. I think this is something you should play around with yourself. One of the reasons to take range is to snipe at the carrier. All right, just being honest, that is one of the reasons to take range. Also, to get the crossfires all the way across the map. The cross maps are very fun with this ship too. I do enjoy that kind of thing. So taking range, I'm more focused on the individual salvo being with the best target possible, not so focused on DPM. But a lot of the time, there's enough targets going broadside that you do want the reload. There's situations for both. Definitely play around with it and try out each one for yourself. There's, of course, a lot to say about Slava and its positioning and where you should be playing, how to play it. Tried to condense it into this video, but definitely check out some of my past videos on Slava. I got quite a few on the channel because I've had a ton of amazing games in this ship. Absolutely incredible battleship for the current passive meta that we do have. Probably fits that meta better than Ohio yet. Personally, I would prefer Ohio to Slava, but Slava is incredible these days and very, very much worth grinding out the research points to get this battleship. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Leave your thoughts on this ship. That way those that are interested in getting it can get a wide variety of opinions down there as well. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.